In 2025, the desire to recreate the Mac OS experience on Linux is stronger than ever, and for good reason. Mac OS is admired for its clean aesthetics, fluid animations, cohesive design language, and focus on productivity, but it is also tightly locked to Apple hardware and comes with limitations that many users find restrictive. Linux, on the other hand, offers freedom, performance, privacy, and near-infinite customization. Over the years, a growing number of Linux distributions and desktop environments have evolved to the point where they can look and feel astonishingly close to Mac OS, sometimes even surpassing it in flexibility while retaining that familiar Apple-like polish. In this video, we are diving deep into the top 10 Linux distros in 2025 that look and feel exactly like Mac OS, not just at a surface level, but in terms of workflow, animations, usability, and overall experience. These are not gimmicky themes slapped onto random systems, but carefully designed distributions or setups that genuinely deliver a macOS-Style experience. Let's begin with one of the most famous names in this category. Elementary OS. By 2025, Elementary OS has firmly established itself as the Linux distro most often compared to macOS, and that comparison is not accidental. The Pantheon desktop environment is built from the ground up with a strong emphasis on simplicity, elegance, and consistency, mirroring Apple's design philosophy. The dock at the bottom of the screen feels very similar to Mac OS, complete with smooth animations and intuitive behavior. The top panel is clean and minimal, with system indicators neatly tucked away, and the overall layout feels instantly familiar to Mac users. What truly sets Elementary OS apart is not just how it looks, but how it feels to use. The system apps are designed in-house with a unified aesthetic, much like Apple's native applications, and everything from the file manager to the settings panel feels cohesive. In 2025, Elementary OS has improved its performance, Wayland support, and gesture handling, making trackpad gestures feel incredibly close to macOS. For users who want a macOS-like experience without endless tweaking, Elementary OS remains one of the strongest choices. Next, we have Zorin OS, a distribution that has mastered the art of visual familiarity. While Zorin OS is often praised for its Windows-like layouts, its macOS-style desktop layout in 2025 is impressively accurate. With a single click, users can switch to a macOS-inspired interface that includes a bottom dock, a global-style top panel, and a polished icon theme that closely resembles Apple's design language. Under the hood, Zorin OS is based on Ubuntu, ensuring excellent hardware compatibility and stability. What makes Zorin OS particularly appealing is how beginner-friendly it is. New users coming from macOS can install Zorin OS and immediately feel at home without needing to touch terminal commands or configuration files. In 2025, Zorin OS has refined its animations, window effects, and system responsiveness, making the overall experience feel smooth and premium. It may not be a one-to-one clone of macOS, but in daily usage, it captures the essence of Apple's desktop environment remarkably well. Another standout option in 2025 is Deepin Linux. Deepin has long been known for its visually stunning desktop environment, and by 2025, the Deepin desktop environment has become even more refined. The interface feels modern, fluid, and unmistakably inspired by macOS. The dock is central to the experience, offering both dock and panel modes similar to macOS behavior. Window animations are smooth, icons are beautifully designed, and the control center slides in from the side in a way that feels very Apple-like. Deepin's File Manager, Settings app, and system utilities are all custom-built, giving the system a unified look that many Linux distros lack. While Deepin has faced criticism in the past regarding performance and privacy concerns, by 2025 it has addressed many of these issues, delivering a stable and visually impressive system. For users who prioritize aesthetics and want a Linux distro that feels premium and polished like macOS, Deepin remains a top contender. Now let's talk about Ubuntu Budgie, a distro that quietly delivers one of the most macOS-like experiences on Linux. The Budgie desktop environment is known for its clean layout, elegant design, and focus on simplicity. In 2025, Ubuntu Budgie with a macOS-style configuration feels incredibly natural. The top panel combined with a bottom dock, global-style menus, and subtle animations creates an experience that Mac users will instantly recognize. Budgie's Raven sidebar adds functionality similar to macOS's notification and control centers, making system management intuitive. Because it is based on Ubuntu, Ubuntu Budgie benefits from a massive software ecosystem and strong community support. It may not advertise itself as a macOS clone, but with minimal tweaking or even default settings in some spins, it delivers a surprisingly authentic Mac-like workflow. CuteFish OS is another interesting entry on this list. Although its development journey has had ups and downs, by 2025 CuteFish OS has matured into a visually striking Linux distribution that takes heavy inspiration from macOS. The desktop environment features a centered dock, rounded corners, soft shadows, and smooth transitions that feel very Apple-like. The system settings and built-in apps follow a minimalist design approach, avoiding clutter and focusing on user experience. CuteFish OS may not have the massive ecosystem of Ubuntu-based distros, but for users who want a fresh, modern Linux system that looks and feels like Mac OS right out of the box, it offers a compelling option. Next up is Manjaro with a macOS-Style KDE Plasma setup. KDE Plasma in 2025 is incredibly powerful and visually refined, and when configured properly, it can replicate the Mac OS experience almost perfectly. Manjaro provides an excellent base for this, offering rolling release updates, cutting-edge software, and strong performance. With a global menu, Latte Dock or its modern alternatives, Mac OS-style window buttons, and carefully chosen themes, Manjaro KDE can look almost indistinguishable from macOS at a glance. Beyond visuals, KDE Plasma supports advanced touchpad gestures, window tiling, and customization options that allow users to fine-tune their workflow. For power users who want both beauty and control, Manjaro KDE with a Mac OS-inspired layout is one of the best experiences Linux has to offer in 2025. Another distro worth mentioning is Fedora Silverblue with a Mac OS-like GNOME setup. GNOME has always shared some design similarities with macOS, particularly in its focus on simplicity and workflow efficiency. In 2025, GNOME's gesture support, animations, and Wayland performance are outstanding. When paired with a dock global menu extensions and a macOS-inspired theme, Fedora Silverblue can feel very close to macOS, especially on laptops with touchpads. Silverblue's immutable design also adds an extra layer of stability and reliability, somewhat similar to the controlled environment of macOS. While Fedora may require a bit more setup to achieve the perfect macOS look, the result is a modern, secure, and elegant system that feels right at home for Mac users. Pero's-inspired modern spins have also made a quiet comeback in 2025, often under different names or community-driven projects. These distributions are explicitly designed to mimic macOS as closely as possible, from the dock and menu layout to icon design and window controls. While they may not always have the largest communities or long-term guarantees, many of them deliver an incredibly accurate macOS-like experience out of the box. For users who want a system that looks and feels like macOS immediately after installation, these projects can be surprisingly satisfying, especially when built on stable bases like Ubuntu or Debian. Linux Mint with a macOS-style Cinnamon setup also deserves a place on this list. Linux Mint is known for its stability, ease of use, and excellent out-of-the-box experience. In 2025, Cinnamon has matured into a polished desktop environment that can be themed to resemble macOS very convincingly. With a bottom dock, top panel, macOS-style icons, and subtle animations, Linux Mint can feel both familiar and comfortable for Mac users. The advantage of Mint is its reliability and simplicity. Everything works as expected, and the system stays out of your way. While it may not be as flashy as Deepin or as tightly designed as elementary OS, it offers a dependable Mac OS-like experience that many users appreciate. Finally, we have Arch Linux with a handcrafted Mac OS-like desktop. While Arch Linux itself does not come with a desktop environment, it deserves a mention because of what is possible in 2025. With modern tools, themes, and desktop environments like KDE Plasma or GNOME, Arch users can build an incredibly accurate macOS replica. From the boot splash to the login screen, dock behavior, global menus, window animations, and keyboard shortcuts, everything can be customized to match macOS precisely. This option is not for beginners, but for enthusiasts and advanced users, it represents the ultimate macOS-like Linux experience. You get complete control, cutting-edge software, and a desktop that not only looks like macOS, but behaves exactly how you want it to. As we look across these top 10 Linux distros in 2025 that look and feel exactly like macOS, one thing becomes clear. Linux has reached a point where visual design and user experience are no longer compromises. Whether you prefer a ready-made solution like Elementary OS or Zorin OS, a visually stunning environment like Deepin, or a highly customizable setup like Manjaro or Arch, there is a macOS Linux distro for every type of user. The choice ultimately depends on how much control you want, how comfortable you are with customization, and what balance you prefer between simplicity and power. What makes this era exciting is that you no longer need Apple hardware to enjoy a macOS-style desktop experience. Linux gives you the freedom to choose your hardware, control your software, and still enjoy a beautiful, elegant, and productive environment that rivals macOS in every meaningful way.